Okay, here we go. Recording. We'll call this episode one of the Triphasic Cult podcast. I'll start. My name is Zach Woodke. Started off as a football position coach, actually, before I got into strength and conditioning. Worked at Ohio State, worked at Akron, and then switched over to strength. Started at Cincinnati with the football team. Moved to Minnesota, and that's when I got the chance to work with Cal Dietz in the Minnesota hockey programs. Interned there for a full summer, and then transitioned to a position with the basketball programs, golf program, and the Spirit Squad, while continuing to spend time in the Mariucci weight room, helping out guys like Trevor and Sam over there, and just continuing to help Cal with his operation. And I'm currently an assistant football strength coach at the University of Idaho.
I'll go next. My name is Sam Lee. I'm from Minnesota. I grew up watching the Gophers play and went to the U of M here. After I graduated from there, I started working in the weight room with Cal, and that's where I met all these fellows here. And throughout that whole time, I've also been personal training and shadowing various chiropractors and PTs. And now just last month started school for chiropractic at Northwestern in Bloomington. So that's where I'm at. Still trying to personal train and stay involved in strength and conditioning while I'm in school here, and we'll see where things take me from there.
All right, I'll go
Jungels, there you
next. My
go.
name's Zach Jungels. I'm from Rochester, Minnesota. Um, Played football at St. John's University in central Minnesota, where we did the triphasic training system, and I also did it in high school as well. Saw great results from it. After I dropped out of graduate school in Springfield, Massachusetts, I was working at two different high schools at the time through my own personal business. And I decided that I wanted to intern at the University of Minnesota. That's where I met these fine gentlemen here. It was last August that I started and interned all the way up until December, where I got an offer to work at IHT Human Performance here in Charleston, South Carolina. And so that's what I'm doing now. And yeah, really excited to talk about talk about the call it with the boys.
My name's Trevor Foreman. Similar to Jungles, started doing triphasic through trying to get better as a football player, playing D3 ball. First time I ever ran triphasic, I wasn't running it true, but just doing eccentrics and isometrics and then power. Put 35 pounds on my squat in 3 months and kind of haven't looked back. I've done a bunch of internships. This is now I think my 6th year in strength conditioning, but came to Minnesota for an internship in 2022 summer. Learned so much. I was training for my senior season of football and never saw results like that for me. Like I've always been strong, but not a twitchy guy. And doing things like OCs and that high velocity training really brought development that I hadn't seen athletically. And then did my senior year, and then for my master's came back to Minnesota. Spent the last 2 years there learning under Cal, and now I'm the strength coach for Augustana hockey.
Beautiful, boys. So I think the first thing that we were talking about covering is just this idea of the cult. Where does this idea come from? What is the deal with people thinking that triphasic and the triphasic way of thinking is a cult mindset, and how has this come about?
I think that it's like a lot of people think that once you start going triphasic or like using some of those concepts and methods, it's like you can't do anything else, and that's like the only way. And I think that's part of it. And I also think part of it is like people just see things out of context and have no idea like where or how it's being used, you know? Probably two big ones right there.
Yeah, I think it's like all of us have applied triphasic in weight rooms that are not necessarily geared for it. And when you see a 1080 and you're benching and there's no weight on the bar, you say, oh, like these guys don't lift weights. But like when you don't have a 1080, you have to figure it out. You have to use bands in a way, you have to use VBT in a different way. So, I mean, how many other ideologies in strength conditioning have like guys? There's so many different places where it's like, oh, you're this guy, you're that guy. You learn under somebody else, and we're no different. I just think we're we all happen to be posting around the same time around similar things, and people are like, where's all this traction coming from?
Do you think that it's because of the actual like content of what we are posting, like the actual exercises or the actual concepts, or do you think it's partly the fact that we're so passionate about it and that it is so different?
I think the algo runs with a lot of the stuff we post. Like it's not a squat. It's not a traditional barbell back squat. So when we post a reel like that and it just picks up, and then you get people who aren't really like our traditional viewer seeing this, that's I think where we get those weird comments.
And the other
Yeah,
thing is
there's
like it's go ahead, Jungles.
Yeah, I mean, there's so before I got to, because all of you were there before I got there, and when I was looking at it from an outside perspective, I was seeing the videos on YouTube, and I was seeing some of the stuff you guys are posting on Instagram, and I was thinking to myself, "Gosh, this is dumb. Why are they doing this? This doesn't look anything like the triphasic that I'm used to, right?" And so many people say, "Oh, I run triphasic," but when I got to Mariucci, I realized that the methods have not changed. The means might have changed a little bit. The exercises might have changed a little bit, but the methods really never changed. So back to what, you know, Trevor, I think it was Trevor said, there's so many things that are taken out of context. And Sam said it too. There's so many things taken out of context when you see one exercise. You don't see how it fits in a whole program. You just see one and you choose to judge a program or a system just based on one thing that you see. And it's funny because even something like razor curl, which is something we might get into a little bit later, that's an exercise that's been in the program for 15 years. You can go back on YouTube and you can see razor curl OCs in the program 15 years ago on the YouTube channel. So,
It just
you
looked
know,
different now.
it just
That's
looks
all.
different. It looks different.
Yeah.
It's higher velocity.
Also,
There are more
people
bands.
don't try any of it. People have zero idea, you know?
Yeah.
Like I was talking to one of the athletes the other day and I walked up to him and I was like, and he was looking great, you know, and like he's one of those guys that came in as freshman last year and like take some time to get good at some of this stuff and he was ripping it and it was looking really good, super violent. And he got off and I was like, how's that feeling, man? He's like, it feels awesome. I was like, and I've got built a relationship with this guy, and I was like, yeah, that exercise was getting the most hate I've ever seen in my life on any exercise. And he was like, how? You know,
Yeah.
he was like taken back. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, I love it. And I was like, I know, me too. So it's
Yeah.
like again, no one's done it, right? But they can jump in and be like, that is a bunch of shit, you know, or it looks like a bunch of shit.
And the other thing that blows my mind is that I see so many comments where people say like some version of like, oh, the things that people will do for likes or the things that people will do for the algorithm. And anybody that knows Cal and knows how he runs his weight room knows that like the reality is the complete opposite of that. Like again, like Jungle said, these things have been around for 15 years. Like Cal is not out here doing any of this to get views. Like zero.
Right. And it's so funny that it's all
Does
happening
not
now.
care.
It's because like I mean, how many years have some of these exercises been implemented? I mean, it's probably been like 4 or 5 years, right? Maybe like 6 years.
It
That like
Yeah.
depends. It depends. Like
COVID,
drop jumps is
COVID era.
probably like close to 15, 20. Razor curl, my intern group was there when that started. So that's what, 4 or 5 years?
right, like adding all the extra bands because I know they did it with no bands
Yeah. And
back in
like
the day,
I
right?
think that's
Yeah.
another like important part of this is people see that setup and they see all the bands. Like that's what's that's an important part of doing that at velocity, which is a reason we do it. You can razor curls just in a GHD, in a standard GHD without all that assistance resistance is still a great exercise. And we'd view that as a strength exercise. But if you want power and speed velocities, you need overspeed both ways. Because again, this is a flexion and extension hamstring exercise. You're not just pushing, you're pulling as well. And I mean, that's part of why we love it because it's unique in that sense. But for people seeing all these bands flying around, it's crazy to them, but it's really just a way to facilitate this velocity. And we
Mm.
do that on anything we can. Like there's never enough bands for us, right?
A- a-
Just
And
keep
the
going.
other thing that people talk about is is like nobody's commenting on the YouTube videos that Cal's put out of like people that have played in the Olympics going through an entire performance cycle or an entire block. Like nobody's commenting on that. People are commenting on the videos, and specifically the one that I'm thinking of is the one that the intern posted that went viral. And part of what I think drives that is the fact that one, it's not an athlete, a collegiate or professional athlete, and because no offense to this guy, but he looks really unathletic doing the things. And so people cherry pick that as an example of like, well, he doesn't look good doing it, so therefore it must be a bad thing. When they don't know the caliber of athletes that are coming through the weight room and how they look when they do it and how much it actually improves their performance.
Yeah, anecdotally, just dropping this program on brand new athletes that have never seen it before in a private performance setting. The elite athletes, when they come in, like these college football players that come in, or these pro level guys that are coming in, they can do the exercise right the first time. They can do it better than I can do it, and I've been doing it for months better than I can their first time, and they only have to see it once. But you let some little Jimmy hop on there, or little Timmy, little Billy hop on there, and he ain't gonna look too good doing it his first time. But guess what? He does it 10 times, he's gonna look a whole hell of a lot better doing it that 10th
Right.
time. And so younger athletes, and this is something that I hope we get into, younger athletes can benefit from this program tremendously, and unexperienced athletes, unathletic quote unquote athletes can benefit from this. This is not just for elite athletes. That's something that people need to realize. Sub-elite athletes get incredible results doing this. Over 8 weeks, we've had like 12 kids PR in their sprints just by doing some of this high velocity band stuff that people think is worthless. It's like you comment on Instagram and you say, "Oh, a Nordic's hard enough or a razor curl's hard enough. Why do you have to add all the bands?" Well, Trevor just said it. If you don't overspeed in both directions, you're not getting the velocity. It doesn't match the phase that you're training. Why would I do a heavy, slow Nordic or razor curl when I'm just going to go and sprint right after that? It doesn't make sense. The contraction relaxation dynamics of the leg aren't going to match up, and you're probably more likely to get hurt. I mean, I'm not going to say that you're going to get hurt, but like it just doesn't match the theme. It doesn't make any sense. So when you look at the whole thing macro, it all makes sense. When you look at it just individually, it doesn't make sense and it looks like alien Egyptian foreign language to somebody. But I think if people just took the time to see the whole thing drawn out and see how it fits into like a greater theme, I don't know that there would be much debate about it being good or not good. So
Yeah.
But people talk about the complexity. You just touched on it. Like, I understand from a viewing perspective that the things we do seem super difficult and technical and complex, and they're the opposite. We try to gear things as much as we can to being naturally athletic. I'm in a similar situation to Jungles, being in a new place, and like it took 1 or 2 sets to teach drop jumps. It took 1 or 2 sets to teach Aries. It took 1 or 2 sets to teach start propulsion. Like, this stuff comes naturally for anyone with remotely any athletic ability. And I find that with a lot of the people that aren't good at it, it's probably because it's what they need. They can't maintain these, they're not strong enough to maintain these positions, or their ability to coordinate is lacking. Like, I recently just put in the band rebounds for Cubans, reverse Cubans, rear delt, front and side delt. Like, first couple times, especially with the Cubans, when they're doing COCs, they have not experienced velocities like that in that range of motion. And it's a little funky the first set, but that second and third set, they really start moving and being able to control their shoulder, and it's not just all over the place. Like, this level of coordination, that's what's going to transfer to the field.
And I think the thing that gets lost in Instagram comments, and this is part of the reason why I wanted to come on here and talk about this, is I think sometimes we are talking about the same things. Like, we might be engaging in the comments with another coach or somebody that has posted a video, and we're trying to talk about the same things and get to the same conclusion, but the language is very different. And if we were able to just explain it to them, they would probably agree with it.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I think
Instagram commenting back and forth does not do justice to the conversation that may actually need to be had, you know?
Yes.
yeah, like if you broke it down into like just an explanation of words, Coaches would understand that every time. But then you show them the visual, the actual exercise, and they're like, no, that doesn't make any sense. You're moving super fast, you having a bunch of high velocity contractions. Gosh, that doesn't make any sense. Why are you doing that? It's like, come on.
Well, some people don't view like the way we view speed as a quality in the weight room. Some people don't think that has any any type of belonging in the weight room regardless. They
Right,
think
like why not
that's
just
sport
sprint?
specific training, I guess. Why not
Yeah,
sprint? We hear that all the time.
yeah.
Brother, we're sprinting right after this exercise.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's
Yeah.
pivot to kind of that topic as far as triphasic as a system of principles, because I think that some people get hung up, and when they think of triphasic, they think of like just the razor curl, or they think of these exercises that are going viral. So what are the things that people, I guess, what are the misconceptions about triphasic, or how would you explain triphasic as a system of principles of how you attack athletic development?
I think it's like with any situation, like you just have to kind of read what you got and assess like how you're going to be able to implement certain exercises or methods or I guess just concepts in general that you want to do with a group of people because like you're never going to know the situation you're walking into, but like if you have things that you can like rely on to kind of guide you to be like, all right, these are the right decisions to make based on what I have in front of me. I think that's a lot of the power in it, because it's not always gonna look the same, right? Like you go to Mariucci, no weight room operates like Mariucci. I have not seen one that operates like Mariucci. Even I mean, I guess IHT is probably then the next one. I haven't even been down there yet, but I can imagine that they probably got it rigged up pretty similarly. Um, but but yeah, it doesn't have to always look like that. Like I've seen people do it in high schools and have it operate super well, but it does not look the same. I've seen people do it in commercial gyms, same thing, doesn't look the same, but like there's these methods and ideas that you can just utilize during certain times, and yeah, that's the basis of it.
I think all good strength and conditioning programs have parallels, right? Every good program is going to be high velocity, high intensity, high intensity, or no, I already said that, high volume, high density, right? Like all of these things make a program good. And Triphasic tries to take all of those and push it together, right? Like you're talking about a program that stresses the body in a very specific way. And like Sam said, depending on what you have, you might be able to do that to only a certain extent. Like in the speed phase, you might have to get a little creative with how you program exercises if you don't have all the bands that you might need. But you can still do it. Like we did it in the Crunch Fitness with a bag of bands and nothing else, and we still got faster. Like there's so many different options available to you, like all the alternative exercises that are on XL Athlete, like there's a million ways that you can do it. So I don't think it's ever a good excuse to say, I just don't have the means to do this. It's like you can make it happen wherever you're at. You just have to use your creativity. And I think that's something that all coaches here could do really well. Just go into a room and say, hey, this is how we can make this happen. High velocity, high intensity, high volume, high density. Like you can make that happen anywhere. And this is just a system that encompasses those things.
Yeah, I think it's more or less just like a lack of desire to actually make it work. Like I've done a high school where I've got like four bands, and I think it was four or five, and it's like I've got a couple for like I think I was using stability balls for rebound kicks, and then the other bands were for Excel jumps and Uris. Like literally three bands, two on pull-up bars, one on a Uri, and we're kicking stability balls. We're still getting a rebound out of that. Like, sure, like I had to do dumbbell drop jumps instead of a band drop jump. The band drop jump would have been better. I can't make that happen, but like I think a lot of that is just your ability to, like Jungle say, like be creative, find a new way. Like dumbbell drop jumps are still a great exercise. And if you progress and periodize the weights of those dumbbells, then you did the thing. You went strength, power, speed.
Trevor, I think you do a really good job of explaining like the idea of program proximity. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear you talk about firstly, because I think one of the foundational ideas that I got from Triphasic is the idea of the performance cycle. So
Yeah.
at a very basic level, explain what a performance cycle is, and then zoom in a little bit and let's take like our, knee dominant hamstring exercises and talk about like how we progress that from strength to power to speed. Because there's a lot of coaches out there that
Yeah.
do Nordics. There's a lot of coaches out there that do, bent knee hamstring kicks. But kind of talk about one, the performance cycle, and then two, how we think about, let's say, all of those exercises and how you progress them.
Yeah. So performance cycling in its most basic sense is just pairing agonists and antagonists. So if we squat, we're going to do a Nordic after that. If I'm continuing down this continuum of the performance cycle, I think the easiest way to think about it is just like an evolved version of French contrast, where Cal came to the conclusion that we don't need to be doing the same motor pattern over and over at these various loads. So if we do a heavier squat and a Nordic, then we do a lighter drop jump and uh, start propulsion. That is our quad or anterior, posterior, anterior, posterior. So just moving down the line in terms of velocity. But so if we're talking about a hamstring in terms of periodization, we're doing our short lever. We have our single leg Nordic. 2 days of tempo, two or 1 day would be heavy. But that's we go from a slower Nordic to a slightly faster Nordic in power, and then keeping that bent knee be a bent knee kick in speed. So just going down the line in terms of that. And I think we've really gone far with like in performance cycling. I think the run specific exercises that we all helped create, I think that was a really big part of like, to me, it's like we've got our heavier anterior, posterior, and then we go into like our trans or our potentiators in terms of adding a little bit more velocity. So doing a drop jump, doing a squat jump, doing a clean pull, anything like that. And then that last movement being as relevant as we can to that transfer, being something like a sprint, a march, a Chuck Berry, a prime time. So like if we're in strength, for us, what we're trying to do is recruit force for that sprint. We're trying to get the highest amount of force in that transfer. So like that start propulsion ISO, we are creating so much force in the direct positions that we are going to need for that sprint. Talking about dynamic correspondence in super training, and then again in that same situation, if we're doing a sprint in strength, we're trying to recruit for force, so that'd be the start propulsion ISO. In power, we're trying to recruit for wattage. We're trying to recruit for rate of force. So that would be maybe a single leg start propulsion, and then or a double leg, either way. And then in speed, we do something like a Yuri because we're hitting more top end mechanics. So like pairing the most the most dynamic correspondence in terms of movement pattern and what are we trying to get into that transfer? What are we trying to recruit for that transfer? What are we looking for in terms of the qualities we're trying to get out of that block?
And I think that's what a lot of people miss. Like they see the video of the razor curl and their initial thought is like, well, why wouldn't you just do a Nordic? But what they don't realize is that we do Nordics.
Yeah.
We do single leg eccentric GHRs in our strength
Yeah.
phase, which is just a single leg Nordic, but we place that based on the quality that we're trying to obtain in that block. So
Yeah.
they just, I think that some people just don't understand that like we do those things. We do Nordics. We do bent knee hamstring kicks. It's just the way that we think about how they fit into the overall progression of the program and what quality you're trying to chase. Like if you're sprinting out on the field, that contraction velocity of the hamstring is nowhere like if you're doing a Nordic, your hamstring is never going to move that slow on the field ever. So yes, it's great for creating force and developing, time under tension in that hamstring, but it does not directly correlate to what actually happens when you sprint.
And it really is as simple as like in my reactive days, I'm doing a Nordic with an orange band, and then I'm doing a Nordic with a gray band, and I'm just progressing velocity that way. And then my next exercise is going to be that same bent knee, but it's just going to be that hamstring kick, the bent knee hamstring kick. So like keeping the same patterns and just progressing the velocity. Have a heavy and slow, have a moderate, have a fast.
I think with performance cycling, it's like if you know that you can do things in the weight room to improve the thing that you're ultimately trying to chase, which is usually for most people, it's like sprint speed, or just like, and for our hockey players, we use sprint speed because, we're not skating in the weight room, but we're chasing after that. And all we're thinking is, what can we do to get that sprint to be better, And so if we know we can stick 3, 4, 5 things before a sprint, and then whoa, that sprint's better, and then just continue to, every time you add a little something, that sprint gets a little bit better, And then when you take a large scale look at it from like all your athletes and how everyone's like responding to that, you can make, substitutions and remove things, add things as needed at that point, So it's the constant refinement process of like, okay, this exercise we've been using has been doing well, but let's try this one and see if this makes a difference, see if this pushes the boundary now, and just repeatedly doing that with, always using that sprint speed or whatever metric you're looking at as the marker to be like, okay, this is working or this is not working.
Yeah. Can
We
you,
had that conversation so many times, Sam. Like we're trying to make that sprint, that prime time as high quality as possible. What exercises can we pair with it to make it better? Everyone knows that like you do a heavy vertical jump and then you do an unresisted one on a jump mat, like that jump's going to be higher. Like that's a relatively basic thought in strength conditioning, but applying it then to stuff that we think matters more, like sprints. And it's a different conversation when we talk about prime times. Like that's going to be a different exercise that has the most dynamic correspondence than the sprint, but it's that same thought process. Like how if the sprint is our best exercise, we're going to get the most training effect out of making that as high quality as possible. What exercise do we stick last?
Sam, elaborate on what you mean when you say better? Because I think there's two ways to think about it. There's better, like when you're talking about a sprint, there's better meaning higher output, like they ran faster, but there's also better in terms of patterning.
Yeah, both, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So like if you have exercises that that are gonna like literally help them move and function in a better way, because like if again, like that's a whole another conversation,
This is a
like
whole nother can of worms with
RPR,
patterns and how we
square
Mhm.
make these
one, all these
exercises.
neurological systems, like even like I don't know, Eldoa, you can probably just keep on going. At the end of the day, I'm not gonna lie, all this stuff is the same. They're trying to fix the same problem. It's like now how you figure that out is up to you. But yeah, so so if you have exercises or you can do certain things to your body, like maybe use a massage gun in a certain fashion or look and sniff in a certain direction, like that you can maybe make a difference in what's going on, and you just keep on stacking those things, stacking exercises that are good that make that thing better, make your patterning better, or make you have higher outputs, or both. There's the thing is like those two things are kind of, I feel like they're intertwined, because this is not always the case, but I feel like usually like if you help people like move in terms of patterning better, their outputs will be higher. I
Mhm.
would say that's usually true, but if it's like someone that's like been really wonky for a long time, like that have not, I don't know, just have not been recruiting the right muscles and they've been doing things for a very long time, and maybe you help them a little bit, but then their outputs are not as good because they haven't trained that. You're giving them a new way to do something and it's not trained, it might be worse for a while, but you gave them something to build on that you can make it better, better than what it was before anyways, and probably less risky on their body, less damaging on their body in the long term.
Mhm.
I personally think that the anterior posterior pattern or the medial lateral cycling of exercises is probably one of the simplest things a coach can do to make the weight room more neurologically friendly. Like we talk about making things more neurologically friendly and using different resets or using RPR interset or using different hand and foot positions or eye positions or head positions when we're doing different exercises. But literally the simplest thing that anybody can do is just test a vertical jump or a sprint at the end of your workout, or excuse me, at the end of your block, and then do anterior posterior pattern cycling or just do like all anterior chain exercises. Like do traditional French contrast, see what it does to your jump, see what it does to your sprint. I think that's kind of how this was born, is observing movement and saying, geez, that could look a little bit better. Switching around exercises, oh, the order does matter, right?
You're like,
I've,
oh,
yeah,
I do a Yuri before a prime time, and the prime
yeah.
time looks better almost every time. Maybe I should stick that in front of it every time, you know?
Hmm.
But I feel
Yeah.
like
And I have coaches.
it gives coaches so much power. Like
Yeah.
you can program so many more exercises because things flow so much smoother. Like you're gonna do a block of squats and a block of a hamstring dominant exercise. You might have a jump and maybe an assistance exercise, a stretch, something, whatever. It's so much more efficient just by going and putting those two main exercises one after the other, putting those two main plyos one after the other, and then your assistance, your active rest, whatever it is after, you just did the same amount of work, arguably at a higher quality, in half the time.
Hmm.
And that's
Hmm.
another
High
thing, just the
velocity,
quality.
high intensity,
Quality goes
high
up.
volume.
Quality.
Yeah.
Like the quality goes
Hmm.
up, Instead of going quad, 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 you're going, what or anterior, instead of going anterior, 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 you're going anterior, posterior, and all of a sudden, like you're using different, or like biasing different muscle slings, biasing different mu musculature, and you're not going to be fatiguing those as much as just hitting them over and over again, going back and forth. So that's, it's going to directly improve the quality of the exercises you're doing, and it's going to prevent like there's general fatigue during the workout.
So what do you
Yeah.
guys think about the word quad dominant? Because I know that that's sort of a hot topic in the industry. Some people don't believe it's a thing. Others think it's a major thing, could cause knee issues, could cause lower back issues, other things like that. What do you guys think about, quad dominant or some of these problems that being too anterior dominant in your exercise order could cause?
I think that if they find the right pattern to use and that's it, then great, but that's not to say that like if that pattern is causing them problems and that's maybe not the right one. If
I
someone's like whatever this quad dominant mean, like wherever like they draw the line at that, I don't know where that line is drawn personally, but wherever that line is drawn with being considered quad dominant, like if that pattern is working for them and you test them and you have them do other exercises and that pattern's working, and oh yeah, like ride with it. But if that's causing problems and you're able to test them and be like, all right, this is a negative thing for your body. Like it's not, and it takes time for these things to break down. Your body can handle a lot, right? And it can come back around from repeated stressors, but if you're doing the wrong thing for long enough, you're eventually like gonna break. So,
So
yeah.
when you have people hitting these high velocities, like if if they're if they're underdeveloped in their posterior chain, like they're going to have soft tissue injuries when they get up to these high velocities and they're getting through their full cycle and they're getting into their swing phase. Like the quad is not really the main mover there. It's the hamstring and the glute. Like I think a lot of people just have, aside from like patterning and like different strategies of movement, like if it's just an unbalanced program. Like you can't expect athletes to be hitting high velocities, and aside from even touching high velocities, just preparing the musculature in terms of like having adequate hamstring work to be able to withstand those velocities, aside from actually touching them and preparing the tissue for those contraction speeds.
Yeah, I think it just comes from the accumulation of bad patterning. And I think that those things will be evident when you watch somebody sprint or when they're enduring a lot of fatigue, or if you test them, like those bad patterns will show up. And I think some of that comes from over time being overcoached. Like these kids grow up with coaches, or they go to schools where coaches like try to overcoach the mechanics of, let's say, sprinting, for example, and it messes kids up. Like we were doing for our max velocity today at Idaho, or not today, but our max velocity day at Idaho, we were doing fly tens with a 10-yard build and fly tens with a 15-yard build. And I've typically been running them, and I'll go out there and I'll do it barefoot. And I think my best was like a one flat barefoot. And so like I've gained a little bit of like the guys love it. Like they want to ask me like, how are you so fast? Or like, what's the secret or what's the key? And we were doing like our final week of testing, and I ran, and one of the guys asked me like, what do you think about? Like, what's the key? What's the secret? I said, nothing. I let my body do the work. And then he ran his best time ever, or not ever, but like his best time that day. And I think some of that patterning comes from guys are trying to like muscle it. They're trying to grit themselves into it. And when you just let your body do the work because you trust that you've trained the correct patterns, your body will do the work that it's been trained to do.
Yep. And then it makes it that much easier for us to see problems as well, because then
Mhm.
when they're just doing their thing, like they're not overthinking what they're doing, like then we can be like, okay, that doesn't look right. This is instead of just trying to cover it up, doing whatever they're told to do, get those knees higher or whatever it is. And like maybe there are situations where maybe like trying to do something like that could potentially work, but like if you try to do something like that and you can immediately tell it like, oh yeah, that's not the problem. And usually telling them is not going to fix the problem if it's something like that.
I think we just have to clarify like what we mean when we talk about patterning, because I think like so we're looking at this through an RPR lens in terms of, especially for the posterior chain, the 1 2 3 pattern of glute hamstring QL. Um so when we say that, that's what we're referring to. But for example, like something like that probably doesn't have great patterns would be like a traditional barbell RDL. You're recruiting a ton of QL, and you're not really getting that same firing pattern that you would doing something like sprinting. So we're trying to not only create relevance in our exercises in terms of using the muscles in the context that we're trying to get output out, but also like I mean, when we did the deadlift program, like all our patterns were brutal. Like I could feel myself rotating when I walk. Like this is not how we're meant to move. You're gonna have a ton of back problems, a ton of hamstring pulls when you get out of these patterns because you're asking muscles to work in a way that they're not built to. There is no muscle that can replace the glute. And when you ask the hamstring or the QL, you're gonna have problems. I like look at elite sprinters. They don't have huge low backs, and I'm not saying like the RDL is never an exercise you can program. Never do RDLs. You got linemen, you got throwers, you've got guys that aren't really hitting these top end velocities. I think that's fine, but if you're trying to train somebody to run fast, you're training muscles that aren't necessarily super relevant and in the context that they're not being used in. You guys want to elaborate further on that?
Yeah, I think the key word in reflex performance reset is reflexive. Like true, beautiful, perfect human movement, like whatever that image is in your mind is just truly reflexive. You do it without thinking, right? So some of these exercises in this program are so good because you can just put an athlete in them and say, this is what it should look like.
Just
Now you
go.
do it. Now you
Yep.
do it. Now you go.
Don't
There's
think about it. Just
this
go.
kid named this baseball player. He's one of the most athletic 14-year-olds I've ever seen run this program. And he did the start propulsion band drive one day. And I'm watching him do it, and he's doing it like a Yuri, like a single leg start propulsion. And so our intern was about to go up to him and say, "Hey, you're not doing this right." And I stopped him. I'm like, "No, no, no, let him do that because let's just see what happens to the sprint." He goes to the 1080 and he PRs. And I'm like, look, that's the way he was meant to do it. It's reflexive. That's the way that his brain organized that task. This is how it should look for him. And I remember that exact same scenario happening at the University of Minnesota when I'm sitting there with Sam and Trevor, and I'm looking at one of the girls do the star propulsion band drive, and I'm like, it doesn't look right. Like she's rolling her shin down, and like the shin is just coming up and down, and I'm like, shouldn't her femur be coming forward and back? And you guys are like, no, just let her do it, let her figure it out. And lo and behold, after like 2 workouts, she's doing it exactly the way that she's supposed to, or whatever our image of what right is. She was doing it reflexively though. And I think that's a big thing about movement, is that when you're over coaching something, it's becoming less and less and less reflexive. And it's not super friendly to the brain, because the brain is taking in all this information and outputting whatever it is able to output. And being reflexive is an important part of that. That's why bands are good.
I actually changed mine to exactly that. But I think again, like context, like that knee drive is always going to occur when you're pushing off like that. It's never going to be isolated like that. And I feel like my guys do them faster. Like that's a simple, like I think with a lot of this stuff, like we understand how many iterations of exercises and testing and messing around with different things that Cal has done to end up choosing these exercises. People do not realize how many iterations of the program have occurred to the point where they are now to find these pattern friendly exercises.
I think something that is important for us to cover is obviously like the way that we've been talking, and the way that Triphasic is organized, especially from a lower body perspective. Like sprinting is king.
Yeah.
That's our main goal, is we're trying to get them to sprint at the highest output neurologically and just literally physically as possible in the best possible way that makes sense for their body and their patterns.
Wait, before we go on, why do we do that though? Like, why is that what we go for? You know,
Coordination, contraction, neurological drive.
it's just
It's the strongest
it's
stimulus.
our base pattern, It's what
It's our primal
it's
pattern.
what you need to do to survive, It is what you need to do to survive.
It's
And
the
when you
most
can,
basic human pattern.
it is. And once you start training it and loading it in a specific manner, it just changes everything. Changes everything. If everyone sprinted and sprinted well, there'd be a lot less problems. People would be a lot, like, would not be as injured. They would not be getting injured as much.
Yes. Like if your body can function properly and do a sprint and execute it well, you can probably do a lot of other things well.
Yep. It's an extreme stressor, you know, and and yeah, it is just an extreme stressor to the body.
And it's also for us, like from the lens that we look at it, it's such an amazing diagnostic tool. Seeing what's
Hmm.
working, what isn't, what positions can you hold? Jungles, you sent us a video the other day of a guy sprinting, and Zach and I were both like ISOs immediately. He needs ISOs because
Yep.
for him being a big guy and for him being a guy with his hand in the dirt, like he should be an elite accelerator. He should be able to maintain these deep shin angles for at least a couple pushes. And he was rising up immediately. That to me,
Mm.
that screams like you need to get strong in start based patterns. You need to get strong with your knee over your toe. You need these low positions, especially for a guy coming with his hand in the dirt. But like that it's so easy once you view it from this lens of finding where guys are weak and what problems they have, and what like 10-20 tool like makes it so precise that like we're building the worst quality. We're finding that biggest weakness and just hammering it out.
So where I was going with this is something important to consider is that I think Sam said this earlier, but like you're not always going to have the University of Minnesota weight room. You're going to be at universities all across the country, and us and other coaches, like you're not always going to have the same setup that Cal has. So where I was going with that is if sprinting is king, and that's the thing that we're trying to maximize, and in an ideal world, we'd love to be able to sprint as part of our, or do prime times as part of our performance cycle from a lower body perspective. How would you still create the same adaptations if you can't sprint intra workout? Like if you're logistically your setup just it doesn't make any sense, or you've got a football team lift where you have 45 guys in there at one time and no space to sprint, you're not close enough to the outdoor field. Like whatever logistical parameters you have that are preventing you from sprinting within your workouts, how do you still create the same adaptations and view it through the same lens?
I would just leave off with the quote, like as my transfer or whatever my
Dynamic
last exercise
correspondence.
is. I would just be the next one back, whatever the closest thing to it was. Like you got a 10-yard sprint start, then you're going to be doing the last thing you're going to do instead of the sprint start is going to be the start propulsion band, or in speed if you're going to do a fly instead of doing you can't run in the weight room. All right, that's going to be your Yuri. We're going to be doing a Yuri instead of that. Just kind of instead of doing the actual sprint, it's the closest thing that you can get to it.
Even just like just something relevant to that skill with another high level of coordination. Like you could do regular bounds and straight leg bounds instead of sprints and prime times. You could do single leg bounds. I agree with Sam. Like dynamic correspondence, find that closest exercise and do that. But you could do a start and then a regular bound, and as long as you're periodizing that from heavy to light, you did it. Or even just like doing Excel jumps, trying to get some higher velocities than you would touch. As long as you go from like a single leg and a light band to single leg and a heavier band to staggered and the heaviest band, like we're still hitting those velocities and we're still getting some sort of a transfer.
I think
I would also go ahead.
during the Revolutions in Speed Training 2 course, I asked Dan and Chris, what are you guys looking at right now? And they said, we're looking at acceleration. It's looking like acceleration is the most important indicator of speed performance. And I'd say if coaches don't have enough space, like, do you have enough space to do a 3-step start, like a banded 3-step start? I mean, that could be your transfer right there. Like that could do
Yeah,
some damage. You get
yeah,
a really good first 3 steps, you could run a good 20 if you get a good first 3 steps. How about that lineman that I sent you guys?
Yeah.
His first step is amazing. His second step is the problem. He fixes his second and his third step, he might run a 4.8. I mean,
yeah.
he's got that kind of power behind him, but
But like
he just can't find those
it
positions.
really is this simple of like you can absolutely do 3 steps, and as long as you're periodizing the amount of resistance and velocity in those 3 steps to an extent, you're still doing it.
Yeah. What I was gonna say though is I think especially if you're not gonna be able to get those sprints in during the workout, like doing those sprints outside the workout, beforehand, before your workout, so that
You gotta
they're
hit them
the
somehow. You gotta hit
freshest.
them.
Yeah, don't you can do maybe some sprint conditioning at the end or whatever, but like if you want to get fast and get more powerful and just again hammer home the idea that sprinting is what we're chasing after and or whatever metric in sprinting that we're chasing after, that's going to be what you're going to do first, but in the workouts, especially if you can't. So and that might mean going find a field, find a different space, especially if it sounds like you don't have it, you can't do it in your own weight room. So
And I think that's another like part of this system in terms of like a grounding rule, like getting quality, especially on sprints. You will not get faster running less than 90%. So you need to create an environment that allows you to run fast.
mhm.
And I think that's also a central part of the triphasic program is you're still always getting those high quality sprints at the beginning of the workout prior to doing any work in the weight room. But I think a piece of that that is probably unfamiliar to a lot of people is the idea of how it corresponds to the block that you're in. Um, I think that probably the majority of strength coaches are running some version of a concurrent model where you have like an acceleration focused day, and then you have a change of direction day, and then you have a max velocity day, and then you've got like a conditioning tempo type day. So I don't think that the concept of like for 2 weeks, we're doing heavy acceleration sprints. It is a method that a lot of people are using. And I know, Trevor, that's something you just started implementing. And you were talking to me the other day about like how the guys felt after they got released from the sled sprints.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit more about that and why like we feel like that block method is effective.
Yeah. I mean, like I think this goes to to anything that we do as people. The more things you do, the less quality you'll have. If I'm trying to write programs and watch TV and talk to a friend and I'm in all these different directions, all these stimuluses are confusing and it's going to be all over the place. So I mean, we're block guys, and I feel like when we focus on one stimulus, the body will receive it better. We talk, Jungles and I talk about how the body craves inputs. Like we are not confusing and confounding these inputs. I am giving you one specific stimulus in strength being force and those specific positions related to the start. Um, but I think another thing is creating I wouldn't say novelty, but like it's like when you get a week off of training and you crave to train again. That next week when you're really dying to train is an amazing week. So when we've done 4 weeks of heavy sled sprints, the guys are fiending to run fast. And even though we're doing a 2 chain sprint for power, it feels fast to them. So you get so much buy-in and so much excitement when you change blocks because guys are just ready for that next thing. And I think there's so much power to novelty in terms of stimulus and just getting onto that next thing. Like power is so much fun and it's tough sometimes in strength with us where we're doing 3 out of 4 days. It's just a heavy sled sprint. So my guys have been pumped just to get into some 15s with a 2 chains just because it feels like they're zooming.
Yeah, I think the block periodization is um it definitely applies to the highest extent with elite athletes, because like they do need that that high dosage of a certain thing or as a very specific stimuli to younger athletes or less less experienced athletes in the weight room and like you give them something or too much of something and it could come back to bite you in the ass. Like you have someone start jumping around and doing a bunch of sprints and stuff, and they have never done any type of like anything similar to that or any type of like extensive plyo or any type of work to like prepare like the lower shank. Like you can end up with like shin splints, so it's or other type of like overuse injuries. So it's like you gotta also be willing to mix in other things with certain athletes if they need it, because like we're always doing stuff that is gonna like interfere with what we were trying to do in the weight room. We're humans. That's just how it goes. You can't provide one specific stress only, obviously, but like we are biasing certain stressors in certain times and seeing how it affects our athletes.
I think it just makes you ready to be on to the next thing. Like, I don't have a problem with concurrent. And I mean, I think for younger athletes, it's definitely great and underdeveloped athletes, but I think you can definitely still get results with other athletes. I just don't think they're going to be as strong because, again, you're just pulling in different directions. But
Mhm.
like if you were to do a standard concurrent when you show up on that first day for high velocity, like you haven't hit remotely close to that and you're expecting them to do a skill that they haven't used, but when you go and you progress by speed, it's just a step. It's a step every time you go into a new block. It's just another step. But I like, as much as this program and this system is built off blocks, like Zach said, like you can run this and not do it in a block periodization. On your acceleration day, you do more of a force day. You do more of those deeper angles. On your high velocity day, you do more of a speed day. You get into these higher angles. Like you're just mixing and matching. But this is another theme I think of just like a lack of desire to make it work and just dismissing it because it's not standard, it's not what everyone else does, and it's easier to say like that won't work for me because I don't have the facilities or I don't have the equipment or this and that, instead of just like actually thinking how do these exercises and concepts fit into my pre-existing system. Because I think for a lot of coaches you don't have to tear shit down to run this stuff. Like performance cycling, you run your same exercises and you just reorganize them. on your acceleration day, you do these acceleration force-based things we're talking about. On our high velocity day, you do the same.
Mhm. And yeah, and sometimes it's as simple as that. Like I've been able to implement some of these ideas with the football program here at Idaho just from me and the head strength coach having conversations about just the organization of the exercises and saying, I think that this exercise fits better on this day because it fits better with the emphasis that we have for the day out on the field and then in the weight room. And it's not me coming in there and saying like, I hate your program. Like, like you should do everything differently. Like sometimes it's just about putting the pieces together a little bit differently.
Yeah. It's literally what we were saying earlier. You're just suggesting, hey, maybe we do this here and this will make that better, and then try it. And like, I mean, a lot of times if you've kind of like seen that and tried stuff enough times, like you gotta get a good idea of like, oh, that might make that better. Like this exercise or doing this certain way is like that could make this other exercise better. Yeah, I think, and that's no different than what you're doing right there. Is you're just like, oh, here, like we're already doing this. Like, put this here and see if you can jump higher now. See if you can sprint a little bit faster.
Mhm. And I'm fortunate that I've gotten a lot of freedom from the head strength coach here where I'm in control of the freshman programming. And I had them do, I've had them do two separate, I guess, like we'll call them triphasic days, where we did they're both dynamic days, a dynamic lower, a dynamic upper. On the dynamic lower day, we're doing barbell step ups. And some of this is, and I talked to Trevor and Sam about this, some of this is exercise selection based on what fits with what the other guys are doing. Like you've got a 6 a.m. freshman lift, you've got an 8 a.m., upperclassman lift, and then a 10 a.m. upperclassman lift. So I can't create some crazy out of this world setup that we have 10 minutes to transition before the other guys get in. So I have to take what I'm doing and fit it to what the rest of the program is doing, but still use the principles that I feel like are best. So
Mhm.
I'm doing a barbell step up, and then I'm doing a landmine staggered contralateral RDL into a barbell squat jump into a Yuri. And we don't get the sprinting, but we get that work, and that's on our max velocity day. So it's not a super deep knee flexion angle on the step up. It's long lever, hamstring, and glute. It's a barbell accelerative squat jump, and then you're doing a Yuri, which is the king of exercising or king of exercises for prime times, which is max velocity posture. So I'm doing that, and the head strength coach sees it, and he's like, "Yeah, we're doing this with the vets." It's unbelievable. And I
Yeah.
did that with the upper body too. We did dumbbell low incline bench press. We did a row ipsilateral with a landmine, and then we did plyo push-ups and med ball slams.
Upper body
And
is so easy. It
yeah,
really is just anterior, posterior, posterior. You did it.
yeah. And so I'm not printing out, the triphasic 2 programs and slapping them on the desk and saying, all right, we got to do this. Like
Yeah, this is the
I, I
only
I'm
way.
taking the core principles and I'm applying them in a way that makes sense to my weight room. And it's evident that it works and it's evident that it's beneficial.
Yep.
This is
And
such
even
an
if you just ask your
important,
athletes, just ask them,
yeah,
like, did that feel better? Like, yes,
this is, I think,
great. Like, let's keep it there.
this is, I think, a very important theme of good strength and conditioning, right? It's like you don't pick your exercises first. You start with your principles. Okay, we start there. Then we go with our energy systems. Maybe what are we neurologically trying to do? Are we trying to work on force, power, speed? What are we trying to work on? Then we pick our best exercises based on the situation that we're in, what we have available to us, maybe the logistics of the matter, the
Yep.
athletes that we're
The
dealing
athlete in
with.
front of
We
us.
sit
Yep.
Yep, exactly. So we picked exercises last. That's what DB Hammer did.
And
You
just
read
keep
all of his
going.
shit.
Yep.
Is exercise last. It was energy systems first. It was neurological modalities second. It was all these other things, and then exercise was boom, smack dab at number 6 or 7. Like what
Yep.
I don't understand a lot of coaches, they just fall in love with exercises. Like, oh, you don't do power cleans and triphasic. It's like, well, you could. There's no stopping you. Oh, you guys know bilateral back squat. You could. There's no stopping you. Go ahead. It
Yep.
fits. It fits in the system.
But
It's just a
you're not looking at it as a system and as concepts. You're just saying it won't work for me because I do this. instead of
It's 90
seeing.
days.
I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
saying do an agonist and an antagonist. I have my opinions on what I think is going to be the best in that situation, but like it's still going to work better if you pair it like this.
Mhm.
Jungles, talk about moving into your new facility and just how you tackled that as far as like taking performance cycles at the University of Minnesota and then figuring out how you wanted to apply that or just everything you learned at Minnesota and prior to all the other places that you've been. How did you apply that to IHT when you're in control of what you're going to see in that facility and just your thought process behind that?
I mean, it wasn't too hard to convince Jared that we should do triphasic because all we did was in the Crunch Fitness. I wrote the workout and I'm like, hey, let's try this a few days. We'll see how you like it. And so we did the workouts, and he's like, wow, I feel really good right now. And then a few weeks later, he's like, wow, I'm PRing in my sprint. We need to do this with our athletes. And then we do it with our athletes, and oh, our athletes are faster and they're more explosive. Bing, bang, boom, there you go. Like it's not once you put results in front of somebody, it's not really hard to convince them to keep doing it or do something a certain way. But at IHT, yeah, I've had so much support from Jared when it comes to like just designing the weight room in a way that we could almost copy what's happening at the University of Minnesota. The only problem is that we just might not have enough of one thing and we might need to sub exercises here and there, but the themes are always going to be the same. Like every single exercise can be subbed with an alternative, like we talked about before, and it's almost 1-to-1, which is really cool because that doesn't happen too many places where you can take your programs and then just like you said earlier, slap them down and be like, hey, this is what we're doing. But that's kind of what we're trying to do. And I don't feel too bad about stealing the sauce. I don't feel too bad about taking the Krabby Patty secret formula and trying to apply it somewhere else. Like it's working great. And
But
we're
that's
not
what
even doing
strength
all
and
the
conditioning is. Who isn't doing that in this field? Who isn't like I can't, the back
yeah,
squat's already invented, brother. Like I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm
yeah,
reorganizing it. Like
yeah.
everyone comes from this is again like the cult thing. Everyone comes from a certain tree and a certain thought process. Like everyone's going to have a slightly different way of doing it. And for us, like a lot of what that difference is just our space and the ability we have in terms of the logistics and the exercise selection with the equipment. But like it all comes from somewhere, something. And like the basis of this program really is like DB Hammer and Soviet
It just
training and super training.
yeah,
Stuff has
I can
been
tell you this.
found out for the most part,
Yeah.
stuck together, like meridians are not new. RPR spots, like those aren't
Abdominary
new.
flexors,
Those have been
1900.
around.
Yeah. hmm
Yeah.
There's a precursor to everything in this
Yep.
system. It's just putting
Yeah.
different pieces of it together. Like the static spring model, Cal talks about
Yep.
that. I mean, DB Hammer was talking about that in the early 2000s and back in the 90s. Like it's
Yep.
everybody's been talking about all this stuff like drop catches, banded.
Training by
Yeah,
energy
exactly.
systems,
Rebounds,
same
banded
thing.
rebounds.
Impulse training,
Yeah.
like yeah, like it's all stuff that's just been pieced together and been like, wait, these things, tying stuff together, time being like, oh, this makes sense to do here, this makes sense to do there in this situation. It's nothing. It's just yeah. It's just a bunch of stuff added together over time that makes sense together and work in the system well. And it's still dynamic, right?
Mhm.
Again, people are always like, oh, it takes the coaching out of coaching. It's like no, when the athlete walks in the room and you got to still treat them like an individual and like just give them things that that are gonna be better for them rather than just going off giving everyone the same exact thing and everyone doing the exact same thing every single day. But there's still always that side of things, but it always gives you something to again rely on and fall back on, and you need to like think through a decision like, okay, what should I do in this time? And that's even when we text each other about stuff for like our athletes or for certain situations. It's just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like someone will text something in and be like, what should I do in this situation? Someone will respond and everyone will be like, oh yeah, yeah,
Mm.
that's
Like
what I would
jungle,
have done too.
like I
We're
think
all on
you
the same
deserve a
page
lot
with
of
that
credit.
stuff.
You did an amazing job building a weight room that complements this style of training. And like You see it at Minnesota when you try and do it elsewhere. Like that room has specialty equipment and a flow of it that is ideal for that type of training. But like my weight room at Augustana is great. Like brand new Midco arena. It's a nice weight room, but it's not necessarily geared for performance cycle. It doesn't mean I can't do it. It just means like I need to be creative with my exercise selection and my logistics, and I just can't do as many exercises. I'm still doing a ton of exercises. I have an upper body block with I think 9 exercises, and it flows well. They're getting that whole block done probably 5-6 minutes a set. But if it was Jungle's room, I'd probably be able to add another couple. But again, like it doesn't mean it doesn't work. It's just a caveat to your space and what you have for equipment and logistics.
Yeah, and what I think is so funny is that people will call you guys bandwagons, right? They'll be like, "Oh, just you guys just hopping on the bandwagon, like this, that, whatever," right? But I think for a good coach, you're always gonna find what works the best, and then you'll stick with that until you find something that works better. And then this is how we're all gonna kind of branch off and add our own little things, or maybe even abandon it completely and find something else that works better one day.
Hopefully,
But
I really hope someone finds
hopefully,
something better.
yeah, I
I
sincerely
really
hope that
do.
one
I
day,
don't see people going to like,
yeah, I I can tell
I
you
don't see
this.
people
I
going
That's
to
part
see
of
sincerely,
the
people.
thought process, right? Like
yeah,
we're never looking at this stuff as an end all be all. We're looking at it as this is our best solution for right now. We're going to
hmm
keep
Yeah.
asking that question, is this the best exercise for this context? I think that's lost on the field in the sense of like if it's not broke, don't fix it. But it is a 1 inch improvement in vertical jump over the course of a whole training cycle. Is that not broken? Like I don't know. I mean, you look at F1, like just because the car drives doesn't mean they're not going to tear that thing apart and find what their weakness is. Like I don't understand how we've gotten to this point where it's just this is set in stone. Like we're not touching it. Like we're gonna keep our exercises and the way that we sequence and form things as it.
All right, I think there's one more topic that I'd really want to cover because I know some of us got to hop off. And Jungles alluded to it earlier, but just the idea of the separation between high level athletes and younger athletes, and Jungles, your experience in training younger athletes with this philosophy and why you feel like it works for them and why you feel like it should be accessible to them, and maybe why other people or some people that see it don't think um, that it's applicable to younger athletes or that you need to have a certain advanced training age to do this type of training.
So I know that Cal's harped on this probably every single presentation I've heard him give. And then he's put it on YouTube a bunch of times. Elite athletes, they have the ability to relax faster than sub-elite athletes, right? When I watch a little kid, not okay, not a little kid, like a high schooler. When I watch a sub-elite high schooler try and do this program, they lack the reflexive qualities that an elite athlete has innately built into them, right? So when you see an elite athlete go through this program, they're immediately able to hop in and do it almost perfectly the first time, right? They can literally see it once, and by 2 or 3 sets, like Trevor said earlier, they will get it immediately. We had
Right.
some football players from the Citadel come in. They did a power workout. They got through 1 set. They watched me do 1 set and they did it better than I did. And I was looking at them like, this is just crazy, man. And like these athletes, they could be 300 pounds or like 5'2". And as long as they're elite, they can do it immediately the first time, no matter what. But younger athletes, they lack this reflexive quality. This program gives them the ability to learn how to relax faster, learn how to create force in a shorter amount of time. These qualities that they are sorely lacking, this program can give it to them. And it's not that other stuff might not be better for them at that certain time and phase. Like that's up to the coach to decide. There is something to be said about, hey, this might not be the program for this athlete at this time. Like maybe we play more games and do more altitude drops and, friggin' sprint and just do that and just, make training fun and competitions and stuff. But at the same time, if I look at an athlete and say, hey, do you want to get faster? Do you want to get more explosive? And the answer is yes, this program is going to do it. I know it's going to do it. We've proven that it can do it. And throughout the course of the summer, our most consistent athletes are the ones that are getting the best results. So in my mind, if you come into my gym and my job is to make you sprint faster, make you jump higher, and Jared and I tell everybody that comes in our gym, if we can't get you good results and you're not satisfied with your results, we should give you your money back. You get your money back if you don't like your results. So if my goal is to make you a better athlete, then yes, I would take the time to play games every single day. But I don't have all the hours in the day. I only have 1 hour with you 4 times a week. So if we need to sprint faster and get more explosive, I know that this program is going to do it. That's why it's going to be good for younger athletes. It works for younger athletes. I don't see it burning the stake too quick or burning the candle too quick or whatever the phrase coaches might want to use. But I do see that as being a valid argument. So I think that
Wow.
that's
Yeah,
maybe the one flaw.
you're just going to continue to provide a progressive stressor. They could keep running triphasic and keep running it and keep running it, and
Keep
you
on the
could just
program.
keep on giving them progressive stressors because they're just young and developing and like yeah, you could just keep on giving them different stuff and they would continue to get better because they're just growing, you know. But this is a good way to do it to make sure that they stay healthy and they're doing things in a good manner, you know.
I think it's
Mhm.
so fun watching these less whatever athletic coordinated athletes do these programs because that's when you really see like these giant chunk improvements. I remember when I was at my high school and I was the strength coach there. I watched this kid do a goat drill and he is no math, no hands, just a simple goat drill. Could barely do a hip flip, could barely run around these hoops, just fumbling everywhere. And in 2 weeks of him doing that goat drill, he was doing it with hands and with numbers and not falling around at all. Like I just feel like again, this is intense training. Like that's the point. Like when you ask of your athletes to have this much coordination and this much relaxation and you put things into the context of being an athlete, like it just raises their ceiling as an athlete. It raises their athletic ability. Their motor control is better. Like all of these qualities we're trying to get, I feel like traditional
They're able to
strength
problem
doesn't
solve.
even
Yeah.
look.
Mhm.
We're not
Hmm.
looking at those type of questions. We're just like, did we get stronger? Okay, let's just hope that strength will fix everything.
Mhm. That's what I love about this program, these exercises, is that so many of the exercises are indicators of a lack of or the presence of coordination, and then it gives the athlete the ability to train that coordination. Like
Hmm.
there's a freshman athlete that I have that struggles with probably everything that we give him. Like the same kid that is going to be bad at RDLs is bad at bent knee hamstring kicks. Like that doesn't mean that I shouldn't do bent knee hamstring kicks because he's not good at them. Does that mean that I shouldn't do RDLs because he's bad at them? Like it's a fantastic indicator of how coordinated that athlete is, but it also again provides the parameters for them to get better in that sense and train the specific qualities that we're looking for. And even with ISOs, like ISOs are fantastic
Yeah.
because you can get these kids into positions that they need to be in and make them hold that position, get positional integrity, learn what it feels like to get to deep knee flexion in a split squat. You could even do bilateral ISO squats, like get a kid into that position and make them feel that position. Make them feel those muscles turn on, make them feel that mind muscle connection because not
Yeah.
everybody
Make
learns just by like repetitively trying to do an RDL. And I'm just cherry picking that exercise, but name any exercise and you just again you're gonna hammer the basics and hammer the foundation. But the problem isn't that like bent knee hamstring kicks are too advanced. It's that the athlete lacks the coordination and the body awareness to do them properly. And so then they're
Mhm.
going to do
Challenging them.
anything
Yep.
that you give them is going to be hard for them.
Yep.
Hmm.
Well, like
Yep.
how much coaching do you need to tell a kid to go from a bent knee and swing your heel into that band, absorb that force and redirect it? Like if they're bad at it, like they just need to go. They just need to do it. Like it's simply a conversation of just try your best, have the most intent you can, and just go. And like
It will
I
clean
know
up. It'll clean up quickly too.
you'll pick it up quickly, and like that's the nervous system adapting. We've all been there, I think, on any type of rebound or COC where
Hmm.
you're trying to get that next rep and you find yourself kind of glitching out. Like
Yeah.
you're mentally thinking, go, kick, 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 and it's not going anywhere. Pushing through that and getting that next rep, that's neural adaptation happening right in front of your eyes. Like that raises your ceiling as an athlete outside of everything, where it's just purely like your ability to coordinate yourself. Like that's what is that not part of what we're going for?
It's a huge part of what we're going for. It's a huge part.
Yeah,
I don't
I've
think it is for
witnessed
some people though.
Trevor, I witnessed exactly what you're talking about too, where an athlete, it finally clicks for them and they can actually do the single leg psoas rebound kick and they can actually get it to look the way we need it to look. And then they go and they
Yeah.
do their prime time or they do their sprint afterwards and oh lo and behold, it's their best rep of the day. And it's like,
Yep.
it's all clicking. Finally, your brain figured out the task and how to do it.
Yep.
Like exactly what Zach was saying, you know, argument that they're not good at it, so maybe we should regress them. Well, let them try and figure it out. Like if your kid can't tie his shoes, are you going to tie his shoes for him, or are you going to sit there and wait till he figures it out himself? Like, come on. I mean, how's he going to learn how to do it? He needs to do it, practice, get better, and then figure it out eventually. And that's going to transfer to every single task when it comes to motor learning. So
And
Like
I
like
don't, and I
I'm
throw
don't,
him in the fire, let him do it.
I don't want people to think that, like, I'm not saying that kids, especially young kids, should never learn how to barbell squat or barbell RDL or any of the major movement
I
patterns. I
think
think
they
those are,
should.
yeah, I think those are
Why
There's
not?
value in that.
foundational,
There's value,
foundation,
yes.
foundational to, body awareness and understanding how you
Yep.
move and understanding how to
Yep.
load your spine properly and keep yourself safe. But I think what we're all saying is just we don't need to keep them there forever.
GPP. Like this is what we say. Like it's not
Hmm.
bad general training, but you can't run GPP all year.
At a certain point, you don't need them anymore. At a certain point, the diminishing returns are too high on
Yep.
a motor pattern like that, right? Like where you're, I, it's just when you're working 6 months out of the year to try to get 5 pounds on your back squat, like you're in the wrong place, man. You're not doing what you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You're not moving the needle when you're trying to just inch up the weight, throwing on a cookie every 2 weeks. Like,
Yep.
dude, we're not doing it, right? Like this isn't working.
All right, fellas, this has been fun. I appreciate all of you.
Great. Good job, guys.
Boys.
Good
Until
job.
next time, I'm gonna
It's
stop the
sad that we
recording.
need to defend ourselves, but
Hey, it's
it's
part of it. It's part of it.
We're not defending ourselves. We're just getting the information out there, and
We're speaking our
we're opening the door for conversation, and I hope that
I
more people
guess, but
want
like,
to converse with us.
I think we're
yeah,
here.
honestly,
I know
yeah.
Jungles is here for it. Put the
I'm
bat
here for
signal
it.
up.
I'm here for it. Let's put this out there. And dude, I would love to get 4 other coaches on the other side of the fence in here so that we can have a friendly conversation because I think this is what we need. We don't need Instagram back and forth. Like I just dude, it takes so much, it just zaps the energy out of me. These conversations give me energy. Like I feel like the more we do this, the better it's going to be for everybody because it just increases the understanding of our side, your side, whatever you want to think of it as.
Well,
Yep.
like,
I
is
just think
is
this is the
there a
best way to do it.
side? Like, we're all
No,
going for the
Well,
same thing. That's what we've been saying.
yes.
It's the same
Hmm.
goal. Like,
No, you're right.
and
You're right.
I
Totally
think
right.
the only way we get better at that is by continuing to ask questions. Like,
mhm.
Yes.
I think the F1 car is the best analogy. Like, every single year, those cars get better, but it still drove. Like, it still worked. It drove fast, but it's not about did it work? It's about can we do it better?